gonna level with you guys. I'm semi-technical.
Okay, so I'm joking, but only partially. I'm not the most full stack engineer. I understand SQL really well. I know what an API is. I've talked to engineers, but I wouldn't say that I am an expert engineer. And with a lot of the AI tools today, it feels like you need to be an expert engineer to be able to use them. But I have figured out my 6-step process to getting started, creating a product that you can iterate on and actually develop something that's valuable to the world. So I would actually start out with step 1, which is a Claude one-shot prompt. Let's see how that goes. And so I'm starting with a Claude one-shot first because I have found that if you use a one-shot for Claude, it actually generates a pretty good working local client app that you can kind of use to refine the PRD. So we're not even actually using the code necessarily. We can use it to look at the logic of how Claude decided to build it. But I actually like to see what the product PRD looks like in Claude, and that's what I use it for. You can tell that in the prompt, what's most important is to actually create specificity in what you're trying to build. And I like to use this, there we go, because whoa, that is all of the stuff that I was thinking but didn't necessarily put into words. Like I didn't say all of these things and it's expanded on my PRD. And so use this as a straw man to actually edit and refine what you want to build. So we've got our awesome app, and now I'm actually going to take this and then build it here. So I started with this, and I'm in Firebase Studio now, and I'm going to just copy paste this. So a comprehensive toes and feet focused workout app. And let's just prototype that and let's see what happens. So why am I going from here to here? Because yes, while Claude now has the ability to publish this and copy the link and you can share it with other people, it's really hard to edit this. And I've found that when you can't actually edit the code here. Like if I type stuff in, I can't edit it to what I want it to do. And I've also found that the more features I start adding into Claude, it just runs out of tokens. So it'll say that the chat is too long and eventually I won't be able to iterate on it further. So rather than you building on artifacts until this becomes a little bit more production friendly, I like to build it in Firebase Studio because it starts to package everything very nicely for me. It's going to ask me if I'm ready to prototype this app, and I suggest that you don't go too intense on editing it here because we're going to be using Cursor to iterate on our product in the future. I find that trying to create just the boilerplate stuff, app deployment, a website, using the right stack, if this means anything to you, is more important in Firebase Studio. So we'll wait till this is ready to prototype. It worked. Now, sometimes you might get an error here. It will show up as red. You'll click it and it will ask here whether or not you should try to fix the error. Do that until it resolves itself, until you get to this black no error issue. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to press edit the code. What we're trying to do is we're trying to use this web-based coding infrastructure to set us up without all of the technical issues that come with using the terminal. So we're going to go to source control and publish this branch. Now, if you don't have a GitHub account yet, go ahead and create one. But if you do, you're going to copy your code. And that code that popped up here should be what you use to authorize Visual Studio Code. Now I can close this and I can now publish this to a new repository. It will by default create a repository called Studio, but I'm going to call this Footastic tutorial. And then I'm just going to make it private instead of public. So these are two options. I want it to be private because I'm not sure that people should see this yet. And it should have successfully published. I can open it in GitHub and there it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore this and press publish. It should automatically create a project for me. And now it's asked me to connect a billing account, or if you haven't created one before, it will ask you to create a cloud billing account. When you create a cloud billing account, it shouldn't create any real billing issues for you. I think I'm being charged 1 cent a month. And they often have free credits. So hopefully this isn't too much of a blocker. I'm going to allow it to set up services. If it asks you what region to select, it's not that important to optimize for. If you're in Asia, pick Taiwan. If you're in the US, pick the US. Now I can publish. So when I publish it, it's actually going to start hosting my app, this website, on the internet. And I can actually share this link to anyone publicly. What I should do now is click View Details, and it will bring me to console.firebase.google.com. We're basically going to abandon Firebase Studio, and we're just going to use the backend that it has set up for us here. This will be our URL. Of course, if you have your own domain that you've bought on Squarespace or anything else, you can add your domain here and use that URL instead. But what we're going to do while this deploys is we're going to make sure that we set up our app hosting. We're going to wait for Firebase Studio to finish deploying first. Now, looking at app hosting, I'm waiting for Firebase Studio to deploy first before moving on. But what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to create a new backend that syncs to my GitHub, because I don't want to create code in Firebase Studio. Remember, we want to abandon this. And we're abandoning this because Firebase Studio doesn't let you build a very sophisticated app. It uses Gemini and it uses great UI for you to learn how to code. But to create a serious product, I've found that Firebase Studio is a little too basic, though it has a lot of great built-in setup. When we create a backend, we're going to be connecting it to GitHub so that when we create code in Cursor, it automatically publishes to the internet. A backend that automatically deploys to the internet from a GitHub push gives us the foundation for good code practices. So instead of writing code all day and then pushing it to the internet and seeing whether or not it worked and then finding out it failed and having to figure out which of the million things we edited was the problem, we want to create a practice where we make one small change in Cursor, deploy it to the internet, make sure it's fine, and then keep going from there. And without doing this new backend setup, it's a lot harder to go through the mental process of I push it to GitHub, now I have to go to GitHub, publish it to the internet. Creating the backend here using app hosting does all of that work for you. So this is a one-time setup cost. Since we've created our repository here already, while this is deploying, I'm going to create my Cursor setup. So once you open Cursor, you will see these three options. We're going to clone a repo. Remember that we already pushed that repository to GitHub. So all of our code is there. And actually it should be the first thing that shows up here. And I'm just going to press enter. Now it's going to ask me where I want to save this. You can save it anywhere. I'm going to save mine on my desktop because I have terrible desktop management. And then we want to open the cloned repository. And this code should be exactly the same as what's in here. It's just that we are going to be using this product to edit the code in the future. Now, I'm using Cursor Pro, so you may not have access to all of these models, but I found that Claude 4 works well. O3 is amazing if you have access to it. Gemini has been really good as well. Here, I'll ask it to please help me set up my local environment for development. I can edit this code and see it on my local. This is the first chat that you need to be sending. And that's because it's gonna go through all of the scripts that Firebase Studio has already put into place for us and create this same web-based environment on our computer. Here, make sure that you're allowing it to run. This is basically its own terminal in Cursor. It's going to install project dependencies. Now, npm run dev is something you will get very familiar with because this is what you're going to use to view your changes in your local environment. This should tell you to go to your browser and open this page. And there we go. It's on my local, which means this is not on the internet. Let's see if this is done hosting. Awesome. So this is actually done. This is already deployed on Firebase Studio. We know that because it's a green check mark, so we can view it. You'll see that the website that we can share with anyone is here and live. This is different from our local environment, but because we haven't made any changes to the code yet, they should look exactly the same. What we're going to do next is now connect our new backend to our Cursor environment. I'm going to choose Asia because I am in Singapore right now. And here's where the magic is going to happen. We're going to import our GitHub repository. So just like we connected our GitHub to Firebase Studio so that Firebase Studio could publish it to GitHub, we're going to use console.firebase.google.com to then connect to that same repository so that we can do a automatic deployment from Cursor. I already have an existing installation because I've been doing this for a few months now, but feel free to install. Now you're going to choose your account. It should show up there, and that's that first part, your username. And then you're going to choose your repository, which for our case was a Footastic tutorial. Here this says master app root directory, leave this, and we're going to keep this on. Make sure this is on. This is what's going to allow automatic deployments. So every time you push changes to GitHub, it pushes those live as well so that you can test that the backend development is still working. Even if it works in your local, sometimes it doesn't work when you publish it to the internet. Create an ID for our backend. It should be unique, and I'll just call this Footastic via Cursor, or you can create a new Firebase web app. Do this to be safe. I like clean deployments. And now you'll see that what was on GitHub is now being deployed as a Footastic via Cursor backend from that first push that we made. So this is what's published already. This is our local environment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like to make changes in Cursor. You can go as advanced as you want. Cursor is very powerful. I suggest creating a new chat every time, making sure that none of the context that you don't want is there. And now we're going to say, I want to change my... So let's say I want to make a small change. I just want to change the title from Footastic to Only Toes. This is the internet version. This is my local version. As the changes are made in Cursor, it should reflect in my local environment if I still have my terminal running here. And you'll see that based on going to terminal at the top of your screen and then pressing new terminal. Here, it will start creating new messages when changes are being made. And you'll see Only Toes shows up here now. This on my public does not reflect the same thing. So now I want to push these changes from my local environment to my GitHub, which will then automatically push it to my Footastic via Cursor project. To master. This is my new backend. It does change your URL name. So make sure that you're using a URL that you like. This will walk you through all of the steps to do GitHub management. I never remember all of these. Let it do what's best. If you're not sure what to do, you can always interrupt and say, what are you supposed to do? What's best practice here? But what it's doing is it's writing all of the command line messages for you to make changes to your GitHub repo. Now that we've pushed those changes to master branch, yay, we can see that a new release is happening already. That should also reflect on our GitHub. And now our changes from GitHub have actually pushed to production. And you'll see that our Fantastic via cursor URL that we had set earlier now works, and it shows our new version, only toes, just like we did in our local environment. Hope you guys learned a bunch, and please leave me a note in the comments if you need any help. We'll send some engineers your way. Bye.